the walls really do seem to be closing in on Donald Trump and those around him. We got news that over 40 subpoenas were sent out to people in his orbit, and then also 2 phones of close Trump allies were seized. So we'll read a little bit about this from the New York Times. Justice Department officials have seized the phones of 2 top advisors to former President Donald Trump and blanketed his aides with about 40 subpoenas in a substantial escalation of the investigation into his efforts to subvert the 2020 election, people familiar with the inquiry said on Monday. The seizure of the phones, coupled with a widening effort to obtain information from those around Mr. Trump after the 2020 election, represent some of the most aggressive steps the department has taken thus far in its criminal investigation into the actions that led to the January 6, 2021 assault on the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob. So this is big stuff. 2 people who are close Trump allies, one of the people who helped him on like election day stuff, and then one of his in-house counsels, got their phones seized, and then 40 subpoenas sent out to people related to Trump. This is huge news. This is, as the article noted, a massive escalation of the investigation, at least in the publicly available type actions. And it shows that they're taking it seriously. And I do think if they're going to these efforts, we may see something real in this investigation to Trump, because there's all these different things going on. And one of the things it talked about is how this investigation about the 2020 election overturning actions and what led to the January 6th mob is kind of being overshadowed right now by the investigation into him over the classified documents because of the FBI raid into him, FBI raid of him, I should say. And so I've always said, even though the classified documents should be handled, absolutely, the most important thing that I see as being what Trump should be held accountable for, everything in an ideal world, but if I had to choose one, it would be his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, because that has the most lasting damage. It is the most profound in the ramifications that you'll see later on in our democratic processes. When you set up a situation where a president gets away with trying to overturn a free and fair election, trying to stay in power, that's terrible for our democracy. So the fact that it looks like maybe he's not going to get away with this is really good. It's really important. And we're just seeing a massive wave of people who deny our elections trying to get in power. And so the more you show that you're held accountable in our country for trying to do something like Trump did, the better. And this is shown so perfectly in this analysis that was done, revealing that we are going to have so many people likely in power after the next midterms who are open election deniers. Reading from Mediaite, Nate Silver's election forecasting website 538 recently published an in-depth breakdown of the candidates running in the 2022 midterms who deny the result of the 2020 presidential election or who have called into question the legitimacy of the vote. The outcome of all that reporting was a detailed look at exactly who is poised to enter the next Congress. The report found that over 60% of Americans will have an election denier on the ballot this fall, and that more than half of House GOP members predicted to win seats in November have denied the election. So 60%, more likely than not, you're going to have someone on the ballot you're voting on who has denied the election. So that's why it's so important that we all go out to vote. But then also, likely based on polling, 50% of the GOP members in the House will be election deniers. That is so scary. And so you see now how part of the reason that Trump wasn't able to do what he wanted to do in 2020 in trying to stay in power was because, as we discussed before, he didn't have enough people in the government who would support him in that effort, right? But the more years that pass by that this is an acceptable behavior, and the more people that get in power who support this type of behavior, the less likely we are to not have this happen successfully next time. And that is very, very scary, and it needs to be focused on. And that's why people need to vote. And the threat to democracy being an issue people care about is so important. But wild stuff. Good that Trump's being held accountable. Scary that so many people are likely going to be our representatives who don't believe in the democracy that they want to work within. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support what I do as well as get access to the full show, all of the stories hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus a weekly bonus show, you can go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley.